unfinished tasks. Essentially, there are all the things that you need to do, and then there's the things that you want to do. And when you're addicted to one of these things, um, then all of these things get neglected, and then your life falls apart. But sometimes that's a bit of an oversimplification. Like sometimes people are addicted to working out and they overwork their body until their body falls apart. Or they're addicted to their job, like working, making money, and then all the other aspects of all the other needs, like they're addicted to one of their needs, but their other needs get neglected, like their family and their health and blah blah, and then their life falls apart. I think that is um, a part of addiction that isn't discussed nearly enough. Like, obviously, these ones, there's the more hardcore, obvious examples of like meth, it kills you, or like cocaine or whatever, things that actively cause harm to you, alcohol, cigarettes. But then there's like the lesser addictions, like phone addiction, that also do some small negative effects. But then I think those are more akin to these things over here, where I think when it comes to these, the most harmful part of it is actually the fact that everything else in your life gets neglected. That is an attribute of the extreme addictions, um, but it isn't discussed because the extreme addictions are more concerning on other levels, as far as like you could die, like it's going to destroy your health. But then when that is no longer a concern, when you're addicted to these other things, um, like hardcore drugs, softcore drugs, and by I'm using the word drugs loosely because then it could be like video games or porn or whatever, things that are harmful to you, but that harm isn't necessarily the worst part of the addiction. I think at a certain point there's a line somewhere. The hardcore extreme addictions like meth are the ones that like the biggest concern is the direct harm that it is causing immediately. And then these lower addictions like could also be causing direct harm, like destroying our attention spans, being addicted to scrolling. But I think these lower, lesser, whatever, for lack of better terms, addictions, whether it be alcoholism or even like weird stuff, like people get addicted to some weird things. I'm not even going to go down that route with listing examples. Um, Mainly because I'm like tired and don't have the creativity to come up with examples right now. But like I think with those types of addictions, the primary harm is not the direct harm that they cause. It's actually the fact that everything else in your life gets neglected. And so that's when I start to dabble in a new idea of like, what if, like, we all know alcohol is bad for us, yet it's been a major part of our culture for thousands plus years. And I think it's because, like, nowadays we have vodka and tequila and all these really strong, potent alcohols that are more akin to the extreme ones. Like you can die from drinking too much. But for most of human history, like you had maybe like a 1.5% beer, if that, like a 0.5% alcohol beer, maybe a 2 or a 3 would be extreme. And nowadays, like 5-7% is normal for beer. So what I'm saying is like, I think because it was more down here, it was less extreme. It didn't take over to the point where all their other needs were being neglected as often. I'm sure there was alcoholics way back when, but I feel like it happened less often. And so the more we perfect our craft, we figure out how to make stronger and stronger brews. We figure out how to grow stronger and stronger weed and make dabs out of them, and you turn like caffeine from coffee. I think it's the same plant or a related plant that we then turn into cocaine, and then we turn it into crack. And like the more we pursue the most extreme pleasure possible, the harder it is to maintain the the necessities of life. And so that's where I get into this idea of like, hypothetically, right? If you go down to the like least enjoyable things that a person could be addicted to, um, where on this spectrum do you start to struggle to do your basic maintenance, like hygiene, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, going to work, socializing, those sorts of basic things? At at what point of as we go along with increasing amounts of ecstasy and pleasure, an increased risk of addiction, an increased risk of um, it's a little late at night. I'm blanking on the word I was looking for, but you get the point. Right, increased risk of severe harm. Um, where along this do we start to struggle more and more with these basic needs? Like, once we get here, we are not doing these at all when we get to the extreme things. But if you stick to the like more normal things, like playing video games or drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, those don't interfere as much or as often. But then for some people like me, my scrolling, honestly, is over that threshold. It is to the point where or it has at many points in my life been well above that threshold where I am not keeping up with my hygiene. I'm not sleeping. Um, I was struggling to function at work because of the craving of like constant stimulation, entertainment, and like disassociative, mind numbing. It didn't even matter what I'm watching. It was just the fact that I was like not having to deal with my problems because here I am being entertained by something. Um, so again, I keep hinting at this idea, and then I give more context. That's twice. Well, this is the third time now that I've said that, and then gave more context and not actually said the idea. So the idea is, like, if you get below that threshold, I'd say like there's a threshold where below it you're able to keep up with all of your like basic needs, and then above it you are unable to keep up with those basic needs. And I think that is where we define things that are enjoyable in moderation as opposed to what is an addiction. And so that the hypothetical idea is like, if we really had good self-discipline, if we had good healthy habits, we ate healthy, we slept enough, we had good socialization, like blah 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 blah, we had all of our needs fulfilled, can we move that bar, move that threshold further up along the way? And how far can we move it? Like, there's this great study with rats that I absolutely love, and I think about it all the time, and I tell it to people about it all the time. Basically, typically, when studying drugs in rats, it's just a rat, an empty cage, water, some like really bland food, just basically the bare minimum of what it takes to keep them alive, and then they put the drug in the cage in some form where it's edible, or they put it in a secondary water bottle where you have like your water bottle and then your drug water bottle. And of course the rat gets addicted to the drug. Versus this other experiment where they created rat heaven. They had lab rats, plural, bunch of them, where they can socialize. They've got like wheels and seesaws and like fun stuff for them to go on. They've got really yummy food. They've got plenty of water. They have all of their basic needs met in this cage, and then they introduce the drugs into that cage, and none of them get addicted to it. Some of them will use it a little bit, but none of them get addicted to it because all of their needs are fulfilled. So the only time we actually become addicted to something is because we are trying to like one of these needs is not being fulfilled, and we find a substitute, a mimic, something that fulfills that purpose, but in a harmful way. Like if I'm if I'm feeling a lack of socialization, then I find like some sort of online socialization and I become addicted to that. Or like nowadays, actually, I knew that this was coming, but I didn't expect to see it this soon. I saw a YouTube video recently of a young person who is legitimately addicted to AI chatbots because they have no friends, their parents are always busy working, they have no socialization, they are lonely. And they made this video talking for like 15 minutes about how they are addicted to an AI chatbot, as in like they can't function on a day-to-day basis, they can't do their homework, they can't like focus or think straight because all they can think about is the AI chatbot. They can't dare imagine the idea of deleting their account because then they'd be killing their friend, right? And they recognize and acknowledge and mention that like they know it's not a real person, they know this is a silly way to feel, but yet it fulfills the purpose of the need of socialization, but not in a healthy way, right? So the idea is like, if purely hypothetically, if you like really had your stuff figured out, could you do meth, cocaine, I don't know, and be okay, right? So long as as long as you don't let it interfere with these. That's the key thing here, purely hypothetically. And I'm not saying that I want to do those things, but like all of the other, like for me, scrolling. When I'm not focused on this, it becomes an issue for me, and it erodes my ability to like do the basics, and so I have to get away from it. I have to, delete the app off my phone. I have to switch to a flip phone, whatever. So I'm like, I think it's phone addiction seems to be more common among Gen Z, which is me, or definitely among Gen Alpha, but far less common in millennials because they are currently of the age where they're married with kids and have careers and they're working hard. Like they don't have time to be scrolling. And then you oddly, so it's like Gen Z has bad phone addiction, Gen Alpha has bad phone addiction, but then millennials, not so bad phone addiction, not as common. But then you have this weird spike where the boomers actually start to have phone addiction because they're all in retirement. They're bored, they're lonely, their social needs are not being fulfilled. And so then this thing steps in and kind of takes its slot. It's kind of like psychiatric medications where you have these receptors already in your brain waiting for chemicals that your brain is supposed to make naturally, like serotonin or dopamine or whatever. And if you don't have enough of those for a billion possible reasons, and then we prescribe this artificial drug that has a similar structure to the chemical that's supposed to go in there, and it just kind of jams in there and it's good enough, and you kind of feel what you're supposed to be feeling from that, but it's not quite right, and it's kind of like that, where these things are not necessary. I'm not convinced yet that any of them are truly bad objectively of their own accord. I think it is only within the context of them replacing what you actually need. That's when it becomes a problem. Asterisks, uh, except for like things that definitely cause harm, like fentanyl. Like, sure, it might give you a great high, but like I don't even know anything about it. All I know is it's bad for you. Like, it's gonna kill you. It's stupid. Don't do it. Same thing with alcohol. Like, alcohol is like supposedly a lesser drug. It's not as intense and severe, but like it kills your whole gut microbiome, and then that's gonna lead to depression and anxiety and all kinds of different dysfunctions. And so it's like, because see, that's where this purely hypothetical concept gets challenged. So like, I would consider having a healthy gut microbiome as part of one of your needs, health, not just good food, but like good blood work, good digestion, good everything about the body. And then the alcohol undermines that always. It's not a matter of like how you use it, that's just what it does. So perhaps there's like two different categories here. Perhaps there's like things that are just never going to be usable in moderation in a meaningful way without undermining these. Like, you can absolutely use these in moderation, but you will be undermining your needs. Um, and perhaps there are other things that have addictive um, traits or attributes. No, that's not quite the right way of putting it. Other things that we tend to get addicted to that maybe don't necessarily undermine your needs the way that meth would, right? I don't know. Just a thought. Just some stuff to chew on. Let me know what you think in the comments down below and question everything.